Welcome again to GUS5162 Advanced Spatial Statistics for Urban Applications. I think that's what it's called. I still haven't checked. In any case, the purpose of this video is to provide a little bit more orientation and grounding and show you a little bit about how to navigate the course and find things. On the home page, you may recall there's a similar video. I'm going to dive more deeply into things here. And so now, to get to the location where you are, the main landing page for the course, I'm going to the Start Here page, which is Welcome to the Course. Now, from this location, you can get your hands on a few things that are helpful, namely a link to a page where I talk about how to obtain and install R and RStudio. These are things that you should attend to early on, soon, and begin familiarizing yourself with them. We're going to talk a lot about add-on packages to R. We'll get to that, but if you want to begin that conversation, we can start talking about that as soon as this week. But what you'll see is R has a really powerful base package, but one of its most attractive features is user-generated packages that allow you to do all kinds of specialized things. And a lot of what we're going to be doing with spatial analytics is made possible by those packages. And also we're going to learn how to use a few graphics packages like ggplot2 and a little bit about the tidyverse. We'll talk about these things as we move forward. From that landing page, from the Welcome to the Course page, you can also access the syllabus. I walked through this in the intro video, and so I won't belabor the point, but I do think it's worthwhile making yourself familiar with it. Particularly, I link to a lot of readings. In the syllabus, I make suggestions about reading chapters from texts that are available to you at the university library, and I provide links to those texts. I prefer you not to incur costs by taking this class, but all of the text I recommend, if you are actually interested in this topic, are worth getting your hands on and are all reasonably affordable. That said, for the lessons that we're doing, I thought it'd be easier to get you to read if you didn't have to incur any costs. And so I'm working with text that we have digital copies of. From here, you can also link to our first VoiceThread conversation. If you've never used VoiceThread, this is an opportunity for you to get up and running in it and to see how to add a comment. Eventually, I'm going to have you actually make some presentations using VoiceThread, so we'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. And then once you're done with all of these activities, you can move on to the first module. In the first module, we're going to talk about hypothesis testing in general in R. Now, the reason I set it up that way is prior to leaving Temple, I taught the Spatial Statistics course, 3161 or 5161, depending on whether you're an undergraduate or graduate when you took it. And that course I devised around sort of a practical understanding of statistical techniques and particularly hypothesis testing, how that works. And so the frame of the course as I taught it, it may have changed in the time I've been away, it's oriented around 4 different hypothesis tests. So, and I set this up around different data types. So we start with nominal or ordinal versus nominal or ordinal. So we did a chi-square test. And then we did a continuous variable arrayed by a nominal variable or ordinal variable with 2 categories, which is to say a t-test. And then we did the same with multiple categories, so ANOVA, and then 2 continuous measures, regression. So we advanced through using different data types and using the platform JUMP made by SAS, we work our way through a series of tests. Given that I could expect, and I should say also, and at the end of the semester, if everything went according to plan, varied by term, we would end up talking for several weeks, a couple weeks anyway, about multiple regression. And that's where we end up. So my assumption for you coming into this class is that you've gotten your way to multiple regression and you understand it to one extent or another. If that's where you are, then you're fine. Some of you coming into this course are going to have a slightly different background. Some of you will have considerably more training in statistics, and some of you might have considerably more training in coding and maybe even R specifically. And so I'm thinking the various talents and experiences that you have will sort of feed into what we do here, which is one of the reasons I like to exploit VoiceThread and have you share the things you know. So if you feel like, oh my God, I've never coded a thing, fear not. If you feel like, oh my God, I know nothing about multiple regression, or what I did learn I've forgotten, fear not. It's going to be okay. And the purpose of this course is sort of bring these things together and push in the direction of spatial analytics. So just to reiterate what I've told you already in the previous video, and I won't belabor the point much, the orientation of this course, the way I'm trying to make information available to you, is by way of content modules. These will be released sequentially, and so right now, to start out the semester, you should have access to Module 1. Once you check off the stuff on this list and view all the material, Module 1 will appear and be available to you. In Module 1, I'm just going to talk through roughly what we're up to this semester and have you dive in to a code that I will hand you that will enable you to sort of see how R works, see how to read data files into R, how to modify and clean data, and then how to set up basic hypothesis tests. I'll demo that video. So on the Module 1 page, you'll see I have sort of a theory lecture. And the way I'm imagining this is if we were meeting together, I would talk some of the time about how stuff works in the form of a lecture. And I tend to organize those, it's horrible, around slides, around PowerPoint slides. And then, given the nature of what we're up to, I will then demonstrate things in various ways. So one thing I'll be doing in the first module is showing you how to get up and running in R. And I'm going to use an old data set. It's from the 2016 American National Election Survey. This is a file that I used in my spatial stats class, and I've also used more updated iterations of that, and I may well update this for that purpose. But in the script here, I just walk through how to open up the data set, how to assign variables to different types, so how to say a variable is nominal or ordinal or continuous, how to do some basic visualization of data and exploration, so how to generate summary statistics, and then how to actually run some hypothesis tests. And this is going to be our first challenge, is making this data set work for you. And so what we'll do, the rhythm of our class will be, I'm going to present information, make it available to you, and have you view that in advance of our actual class meetings. And then when we meet, which will be Wednesdays from 5:30 to 7, once a week for an hour and a half, and if necessary, we can find other times to meet or go long. But generally speaking, I found an hour and a half is sufficient time for us to come together, talk about what you've seen and things you have questions about, and to prepare yourself to work independently on this material once we're done. One thing that I haven't done in the past with this class is establish a Discord presence. I decided that I don't always like the ways that, say, the online discussion in Canvas or even VoiceThread work in terms of getting quick answers to questions. And so I've started using Discord in my teaching. If you haven't used Discord before, perhaps you've used Slack. I mentioned using Slack to my daughter, who's a senior in high school for now. And she said, "Oh no, use Discord. That's what all the young people use." Well, fine. They're about the same to me. And I started using it and finding that it's a really easy way of getting quick answers to questions. It allows you to answer each other's questions, and also it's a good mechanism for getting a quick answer if you're having some ornery little problem. So that's another thing that we'll be doing to expand what we're up to here. These demo videos, back to them, are basically background information. These might not be entirely necessary for you, and if that's the case, great. But what I do is I march through procedures in R and just sort of show you the path. People do this differently. In the past, I have given people access to DataCamp, and I can do that again if people like. The reason I don't explicitly is because I find DataCamp is really great for getting you trained in using R generally. My approach, though, rather than focusing on all the semicolons and the punctuation in DataCamp, is to give you working code and have you repurpose it. And I find that that way you learn less about syntax, and so sometimes that's a problem, but more about the operations writ large. And so I've found it a pretty effective way of getting to know R and learning faster, getting up to speed faster, which in a summer course is one thing that's really necessary. So I'll be curious to get your feedback on how this is working for you. And this is going to be an ongoing conversation for us. And every summer is different, I find. I have a lot of prepackaged code already. I'll be updating just about everything we do as we do it. I every summer sort of revamp things on the fly. So you'll be seeing sometimes things in video form that don't necessarily correspond to what you see in the code itself. You can flag those and make me aware of them, but there will be occasional inconsistencies like that we'll have to contend with. But for the most part, you'll find that walking through the code works. I've test driven it. I always do. And if it doesn't work, I'll tell you where you can skip. But this will be the way we get to know R, is by staggering our way through it and learning how to use R for purposes that make sense. I often find that it's easiest to begin to analyze by using a question, something that's of interest to you, a question that you want to answer, and finding the techniques that allow you to address it. And that's the basic model that I'll be applying all semester long.